Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. We're seeing a pattern with Tesla. Whenever they launch a new model, it seems to exponentially sell better than the previous. The Model S outsold the original Roadster, the Model 3 outsells the Model S. Until now, we're up to the Model Y, which we're told is already going to sell better than any other model. Not just better than any other Tesla model, but sell more than any other model from any other manufacturer in the world, implying around 2 million annual units when compared to the Toyota Corolla, the current most popular selling car model around the world. And wow, Tesla are going to beat the Toyota with a car that costs more than twice the price. No easy feat. You see, pretty much every time Tesla launch a new model, then there is the next model after that is intended to be an even bigger seller. Okay, with a few other models on the side like the X, Roadster, Semi and Cybertruck. But overall for Tesla, they're looking to the future for the next product that will outsell all the others by an order of magnitude. But to reach these numbers, Tesla first needs to ramp up their production lines and economies of scale before they are ready. It has been done in stages, as the demand for each next model is so much higher that Tesla has to get so many more resources in order to be able to meet the market demand. Now, after the Y, sure, we have the Cybertruck, but eventually we hope to see the unveil of the Model 2. If we're talking around 2 million annual sales for the Model Y, at possibly a starting price of what might be $42,000 to achieve those numbers, then I think it more than likely, when a Tesla is priced at $25,000, then the amount of demand should go through the roof. You see, Tesla has something that absolutely no other car in the world can ever offer. It will always have that intrinsic value of being a Tesla. And when you suddenly drop the price by nearly half, well, it still has the value of the fact it is a Tesla and can do everything a Tesla can at half the price. Now, you may have heard me say before that when the Model 2 factory eventually comes online, I think it will have a capacity of around 5 million units a year. Well, if you have 2 million for the Y, then if the Model 2 is about half the price, then the demand will be absolutely crazy. Supply and demand are not linear when relative to price, particularly as Teslas are an elastic good, which means if you drop the price by 10%, then demand would increase by more than 10%. If the Model 2 is nearly half the price, it implies demand would more than double. The thing is, it won't just be demand for people who need a new car currently, because their old one needs to be updated. This will be the car for the majority of consumers to transition from ICE to electric. A lot of consumers won't wait. They won't be able to resist an affordable electric Tesla now. I don't need a new car right now, but if I could buy a Tesla for $25,000 now, then you bet I'd buy one. Of course, if the tax credit arrives in the US, then the demand will be absolutely insane. But even if it's not, then globally, this car will sell. I think it should just about sell as many as all the other models combined, as in 50% of Tesla auto sales will be the Model 2. And hopefully Tesla can achieve this with a 30% profit margin. And that's just profits for selling the car. We do have FSD, which will likely cost the same in a 2 as a Model S. And then the potential of getting those Model 2s out in the robotaxi fleet. But if Tesla can get 30% margin from each Model 2, and there'll likely be a longer range version at $30,000 price point, perhaps the average gross margin per car without FSD could be around $8,000. Well, if Tesla sold 5 million a year, then that's $40 billion gross profit, likely taking the entire auto business to around a staggering $100 billion in gross profit, about where Apple are today, of course just for Tesla's auto business. It's likely that many businesses see value in Model 2s and business opportunities. We could see some customers order hundreds at a time, maybe for a rental car company that want to specialize in EVs. Just renting one out at $50 a day would be $15,000 a year income per car. Then the actual customer who rents the car also doesn't have to worry about paying for gas the whole time, obviously meaning increased value to the customer, and thus willing to pay extra to rent a Tesla. You may look at a Model 2 and think it's amazing because Tesla have managed to deliver a car that is half the price of a Model Y. And it is. But it doesn't stop there. You see, all EVs have an intrinsic value of driving from A to B at perhaps 1/5 the cost of an ICE car. Of course, that's just the fuel savings. There is all the other associated maintenance costs with an ICE car over an EV as well. This will always have a value. Even when Model 2s are 10 years old, they will still have the ability to offer very cheap, reliable private transportation. This intrinsic value would probably be the amount a Model 2 is worth in 10 years. It would likely be more or less fully depreciated by then, and left at only this intrinsic value. Especially if it's only been privately owned the whole time, even if it accumulated 250,000 miles on the clock, then the battery will still charge not far off how it did when new. This is because the Model 2 will use LFP batteries, which don't degrade anywhere near as bad as NMC batteries. These cars shouldn't have much trouble doing 1 or 2 million miles before the battery degrades too much. They say an LFP battery can handle about 10,000 charging cycles before they start to degrade noticeably. This is the million-mile battery presented to us at Battery Day. If you drove 200 miles a charge, times that by 10,000, then that's 2 million miles. Okay, far more than a typical car owner requires, but great for robotaxis. This is why a lot of people think the Model 2 will be the most suitable car for the robotaxi network, particularly how it can get the cost per kilometre driven that much lower. Meaning as a robotaxi, it can actually compete with public transport costs too. But also could be highly beneficial for less developed nations. Like an ICE car that is no longer feasible to drive also has an intrinsic value as scrap metal, while the Model 2 will always have the intrinsic value of cheap transport. And after 10 years, if it was privately owned, then the Model 2 is probably still good for another million miles or so on the battery. That is value. And yes, we're so early in the days we haven't even seen a Model 3 depreciate yet, and consumers don't yet understand the intrinsic value of a Tesla. For argument's sake, let's say an old EV that still works fine, just a bit rough around the edges, still has an intrinsic value of $15,000. That being the intrinsic value of what people are willing to pay for very cheap private transport. If the Model 2 was $25,000, then there'd only be $10,000 premium in what consumers have to pay for a new version. And of course, there is the robotaxi network. Then the Model 2 also has another intrinsic value of being capable of generating income. A robotaxi may net the owner $10,000 to $15,000 a year. Well, that entirely changes the economics of the vehicle, and also makes you wonder why Tesla would want to sell something that generates that much more income for so little. Why would they want to sell them at all? A lot of people think. Tesla may just keep them all for themselves. When eventually the robotaxi network does come into fruition, by that stage there should be an abundant supply of Model 2 robotaxis available to enter the fleet. Adding tremendous value onto all self-driving Teslas could really shake up the entire structure of owning a car. If by this stage there are any other EV companies still standing, then perhaps that's how they will differentiate themselves, in the fact that they actually allow you to buy their cars rather than just hire them as a taxi. But then they likely won't have FSD, at least to any level Tesla would. I really can't wait to see how this company unfolds over the next 5 years. But once the Model 2 ramps up, even without a feature-complete FSD, then that would likely enter Tesla's stock price into another cycle. We could be talking $3 to $4 trillion valuation, but that would be solely for the auto business, without FSD or robotaxis. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.